Okay, so today in your note packet, you will see 6.2 leaders and events. This actually is your 5.3 notes. My apologies. So you can cross out that 6.2 and you can write 5.3. We changed things around a little bit with the project, so that's the reason for the change, and my apologies for that. Your objective of the day is that you will be able to identify Civil War leaders and explain the significance behind the Emancipation Proclamation and the Gettysburg Address, both which were written by Lincoln. And today you actually don't need to worry about completing a political cartoon. We decided to move that until the next lesson. You're going to do a different activity for today. Okay, so the differences between the North and the South. The North is known as the Union. And a little bit about the North is they overall had a larger population. They had more factories, so they could produce more goods. They had control over the Navy. They had the railroad. And they were able to finance the war with taxes. Now, something to notice, that not everybody in the North was against slavery. There was a group called the Copperheads, and they were pro-slavery, but lived in the North. Now, the South had fewer people. Not everyone supported the war. The South used slaves for labor. So then the men could fight in the war. They also fought on their home ground. And they had Robert E. Lee. He was known as a strong general. So those are some of the differences between the North and South. Oh, the South was also known as the Confederates. Okay, African Americans in the war. So as you know, there was a group of African Americans. Black troops tended to serve under white generals. If they were captured by the North, or I'm sorry, by the South. If they were captured by the South, they were either killed or sold back into slavery. And 186,000 African Americans served in the Union Army. That's a lot. That's a big deal. Some of the leaders that you need to be aware of during the Civil War are Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln's goal was to preserve, meaning to protect or save, the Union. Ulysses S. Grant, over here to the right, was the Union general. And Lincoln was known as saying he was the right man for the job. So he wasn't necessarily the best general, but Lincoln still had a lot of respect for him. William T. Sherman was also a Union general, and he was known for Sherman's March, where essentially he burned everything from Savannah to Atlanta. Frederick Douglass was a former slave. He was an abolitionist. And he helped Northerners. This was really important. He helped the North recognize and understand the injustice of slavery. So some of the leaders in the Confederate Army, we have Robert E. Lee. He was a Confederate general. He wanted the Southerners to surrender, where he wanted the South to reconcile. And he fought for the South because he didn't want to fight against Virginia. He lived in Virginia. As a matter of fact, if you go to Arlington, you can see his house in the center of Arlington Cemetery. Stonewall Jackson was called Stonewall Jackson because he stood like a stone wall. Okay, a couple important documents. The Emancipation Proclamation was delivered by Abraham Lincoln. It gave it in January of 1863 after the Battle of Antietam, and we had a victory. He freed the slaves in the Confederacy, so he did not free the slaves in the North. So that's important to know, not the North. Now, why this was important? Obviously because of freeing the slaves, but also made the war about slavery. This was important so that Great Britain did not intervene. They didn't want Great Britain to intervene. The Gettysburg Address was the second major document by Abraham Lincoln. In November of 1863, it's famous because it starts off with 407 years ago. Many of you guys have maybe heard that before. And he gave it at Gettysburg as a remembrance to those who lost their lives. Why is this important? he said that the Civil War was a struggle to preserve the Union. Essentially saying that Lincoln's main goal was that he wanted to keep the Union as one. He did not want the Union to separate into two. And that is it for today.